Hi, everyone. My name is Candace Enman, and I'm the president at Welsh Capital Partners. Welsh Capital Partners is an investment banking firm that helps business owners understand, maximize, and capture value all along their growth and exit journeys through our core service offering of mergers and acquisitions, capital, both debt and equity, as well as valuation services. In the past 2 years, we have seen a lot of volatility in the market, good and bad, and the one thing that has remained constant is that cash is king for business owners. Too little, and business owners really found themselves, having to access additional capital or having to restructure. And if there was an excess, business owners were able to look at ways to invest and to grow and to potentially even accelerate that growth via acquisitions. With the uncertainty of a recession, we thought it would be timely to revisit some key foundational pieces business owners and their finance teams should be thinking about, both from a financing and a forecasting perspective to support their needs for additional capital, growth, and even in preparation of a sale. I was fortunate enough to work with my guest, Juana Levis, and I'm sure I said your name incorrectly, so you'll have to correct me later. On a common client in mid-2020 when she was working as a senior commercial account manager with RBC. And since then, she has embarked on her second foray into entrepreneurship, leveraging her experience specifically in banking to help companies with their financing, as well as educating them on the importance of financial storytelling to support their growth journey. I've been very impressed with the insight that she has been sharing on social media via her new company, Financerio. So please be sure to follow her. And given that I am also equally as passionate about companies' financial and strategic stories, which we know is critically important when valuing a company, raising capital, or even buying or selling a business, that we jointly wanted to bring this discussion on financing, forecasting, and financial storytelling to all of you. So welcome, Juana. Before we begin, did you want to introduce yourself and your new business?
Sounds good. Thank you, Candace. Hi, it's great to be here. Thank you so much for having me. So yes, I'm Juana Levis. I'm a former commercial banker with a 12-year career managing the financing needs of some of this region's largest supply chain companies, as well as many of our city's known tech companies. I'm also an immigrant entrepreneur from Romania, a very proud Queen's MBA grad, and a chartered professional accountant. And as of January of this year, I'm also the president of Financerio, a financing advisory firm on a mission to make business financing simpler, faster, and better for growing companies. We speak banking to bankers so our clients can take control of their financing process. We transform their business strategy into financing presentations and forecasts that speak to the information needs of lenders. And we enable them to close transactions that offer better access to capital and faster turnaround times. We also help our clients align their business and financing strategies so they can grow sustainably. We roll their forecasts regularly with actual results. We anticipate their funding requirements as their companies grow, and we proactively enable them to negotiate more favorable terms to stay compliant with lender agreements and to actively manage their capital structure in line with the evolving risk profile of their business.
That's great. I'm so glad you can join us today. And anytime that we have an opportunity to help business owners make the complex simple, I think that is that's really important. So let's jump right in then. So companies seek financing to operate obviously their day-to-day activity of their business, as well as to finance organic growth or acquisitions and expansions. It could be real estate acquisitions. So I'm curious, in your opinion, how does a company go about setting themselves up for success when they require new financing?
My first piece of advice is to acknowledge that your audience will have their own criteria to evaluate your financing needs. And that's coming from their own focus, which is on risk and risk mitigation. And that won't also be your focus as a company, because where they see risk, you see opportunity. So expect there to be a gap that you will need to work to fill if you want to maximize the success of your loan request. My second piece of advice is to sell yourself as an attractive candidate for debt financing by positioning your credit risk profile in the business within the limits that your lender can tolerate. And some tips to do that include presenting comprehensive historical, current, and forecasted financials, ensuring you're speaking your audience's language because lenders do track different KPIs than companies do internally, and addressing concerns directly because if you do not take the opportunity to tell your story, it will be told for you. The lender will form an opinion on the financial data presented either way. So if there are anomalies to speak of, make sure you tackle them up front. And finally, my third piece of advice is to have a plan B to supplement cash flows when necessary and to share that plan B with your lender. Risk assessments actually track components called access to additional capital. And that backup source could be coming from a related entity, an individual guarantor, another source. What's important is to share what that is with your lenders because it will help de-risk their loan, which in turn will benefit you by improving your loan pricing, covenant structure, or other critical loan terms and conditions.
That's good. So we know business owners can get excited about those opportunities that they have on hand, like you mentioned. And sometimes it's really hard for them to articulate what that opportunity is to others. Enthusiasm is obviously a real positive, and we love it when entrepreneurs and business owners come to us and they have that passion, but knowing how to present that opportunity becomes really key when you're seeking financing. You mentioned the banks think in terms of risk. Can you elaborate on that just a little bit more? Because I feel like it's really critical to the understanding of how we present information when getting financing.
Certainly. Lenders live in the world of risk and return. The lower their potential for return is, the lower their credit risk that they're willing to take on any given borrower will be. So for them, the world revolves around risk pricing, risk management, risk mitigation, risk sharing, risk avoidance. So as a result, every piece of information that you share with your bank will be filed in one of three categories: probability of default, loss given default, and exposure at default. Depending on the credit risk they assess for your business at any given point in time, senior lenders such as banks will typically seek to secure the repayment of their loans in three ways. First, through the cash flows of the ongoing operations of the business. Second, through the collateral security value of the pledged assets. And third, through recourse against the guarantor. Without operating cash flows and without collateral security, it's typically quite difficult to close a deal in senior commercial lending space. If there is cash flow, but there's no meaningful collateral security value available, that's typically the space of mezzanine debt financing. And if there's cash flow and security, but no third way out, depending on the strength of the first two ways out, the transaction might still be very strong regardless, or it might be that the transaction will be constrained on pricing, covenants, or reporting in a way that heavily restricts the business in order to appropriately secure the lender.
Okay. So now that we covered the language of lenders, which is obviously risk, and assuming a company is able to convey that opportunity appropriately, do business owners have any leverage when negotiating with a lender?
It's a great question. Banks have slowly moved to automate credit risk assessments up to several million in total authorized credit. So with computers and artificial intelligence in the driver's seat, it's never been more critical for companies to understand how they're being evaluated by their lenders and to prepare comprehensive proposals in support of their financing requests. Behind the scenes, bank risk managers make suboptimal financing decisions based on the financial data presented by companies all the time. So the challenge companies face is figuring out how to present their available data in order to make it tell the story exactly how they want the bank to hear it. And that means as a company, you need three critical things to be successful with a credit request: a supportive credit manager who believes in your business, your strategy, and your ability to execute, and who will put the deal forward; a well-presented three-statement financial model that effectively ties your past, your present with your future, and enables your bank to understand the key performance and cash flow drivers so that they can gain comfort with your company's risk profile. And finally, a transparent discussion of any elephant that might be in the room. You need to show, as opposed to tell, how you got into the situation, what you're doing to resolve it, and what the impact of your efforts is and will continue to be. I think the mistake a lot of companies make is they tell stories when in fact, banks need to hear the story translated in ratios, something they can measure and benchmark and track.
So really it comes down to trust when you really think about it, and lenders want to see that the companies have a plan and that they can execute obviously on that plan. But it seems to be a common theme, that business owners will have a budget in place, really, an annual budget, and they're not really forecasting their numbers beyond that year. So why is it important for business owners and their teams to have a more robust financial model in place?
I think it's really hard for a company to claim they truly planned long-term without showing a proper multi-year three-statement model to inform those plans. Building a new facility, acquiring another business, growing aggressively, all these strategies have transformative effects on balance sheets, income statements, and cash flow statements. And without modeling these assumptions, without calculating the key financial ratios that come with this, without setting up a framework to actually track performance to plans, it's really hard to defend how you can actively manage the plan and keep it on track. So to a certain extent, your past will inform your future in the eyes of your bank. So you need to let it speak for you through a budget. If your past track record is great, fantastic. Use it as in a comprehensive financial model to show how it will help drive the future business results. If your past is not so great, use it just the same to show how you'll be overcoming past difficulties in the future and clearly state your assumptions. All that being said, budgets are static tools and the company will use funds to evolve its business. So rolling the budget with actual data is essential to monitor performance for yourself as well as for your lender. And in contrast, what most companies present is disparate information. A set of financial statements that are historical, a static budget, and perhaps current year reports in isolation. And what that does is it leaves the bank struggling to piece the story together. And of course, due to various constraints, time, capacity, knowledge, this never works out in the company's favor.
Okay, so that takes us really into kind of the forecasting. So what is your approach then to forecasting, and specifically, like, what are lenders looking for?
First and foremost, I always recommend presenting three-statement forecasts, linking the past and present results to your future plans and clearly indicating your assumptions. And on this note, vertical and horizontal analysis are extremely useful to both ground and support your model assumptions. If possible, you also want to make it easy for lenders to use your model to perform their sensitivity analysis by pre-building downside scenarios. In fact, I always tell my clients they should want to know before the bank wants to know how long they can afford to miss revenue and profitability targets before wires get tripped, covenants get breached, and cash flow takes a big hit. I also recommend that you model historical, current, and forecasted cash flow, the current forecasted cash conversion cycle to really understand your working capital requirements. You always want to calculate, track, and manage critical lender ratios as well, such as leverage, debt servicing, and liquidity. And you should probably also track performance on a monthly basis. Some companies prefer quarterly, but be prepared to share what your performance is tracking to with your lender. And once again, you should want to know before your lender wants to know how the business is performing against its strategic objectives. And finally, it's really important to try to anticipate challenges and present a comprehensive financing package to your lender, offering details about what security the bank can access to ensure their loan repayment, what amortization terms you've tested based on your forecast, and you can meet, what financial covenants the business can meet based on your forecast again, and what borrowing base of liquid assets is available to convert to cash within the operating cycle so that your lender's repayment is ensured.
That's all really great advice. So we know that business owners, obviously, they need a compelling vision for their company, and to be able to tell that story in both numbers and, again, the narrative when seeking financing. So sometimes we actually like to flip the switch and ask business owners if they would reinvest in their business, based on the information that they're putting forth. And one that really starts to look at, what is their risk tolerance, but it also gives us a sense of, what information are we missing from that storyline that a potential investor might seek clarity on. So Juana, do you have any last thoughts or questions you would pose to business owners and their teams to help them ensure that success, down the road when it really comes to, financing requirements?
Well, first, sustainable growth requires careful and deliberate strategic planning, and the ability to attract external capital is critical to the successful execution of strategic plans. So my advice to everyone is to start now and build a reporting structure that can grow with the business and that can, very importantly, track performance results from the perspective of outside capital providers. And second, every entrepreneur ultimately aims to transition their legacy somehow. So to maximize the chances of a successful exit, I believe it's critical for them to understand their objectives and to plan strategically for how they're going to achieve those objectives. It can be a very long journey spread over quite a few years. And in my opinion, an experienced M&A firm will be invaluable to guide them along the way and maximize their opportunities while steering them away from trouble. So my advice is, find that M&A firm that aligns with your objectives and your values and invest in that long-term partnership, because they will keep their eyes on your exit goals while you keep your eyes on your business.
Thank you. Before we close, I do want to bring you back to another question because I'm not sure if we specifically answered it. And I know it's something that we get asked all the time when we're working with commercial lenders, and that is, do business owners really have any room to negotiate? Specifically, I mean, we always get asked on guarantees, but do they have room to negotiate?
I think it's a question that goes back to the risk appetite of lenders. And it's very important that if you're going to seek facilities and accommodations of any sort for your company, you present the very best proposal that makes it easiest for your lender to approve, to underwrite, to assess, to get comfortable with your risk profile. So the answer is yes, they do. The better the proposal they put forward, the better they prepare, the more compelling their argument, the better their leverage and negotiation power at the table.
Yeah, that's a fantastic note, I think, to end this on. So I want to thank you, Juana. You've shared great advice. And given where we're at today, with the economy, it is likely even more important for business owners to get their financial house in order, along with their narrative, and really understand what lenders are looking for. So when they do get additional financing, or they need to raise capital, or even go to market, they are set up for success. So as mentioned earlier, please follow Juana on LinkedIn. She has almost 15,000 followers in such a short period of time, which is incredible. So please reach out to her if you need assistance in telling your financial story. Please also be sure to follow Welch Capital Partners as well, and connect with us directly if you have any questions following this session. Cheers, everyone, and thank you.
Thank you.